The IFP defeated both the ANC and MK in a hotly contested election in KZN, whereas the PA continued to dismantle the DA in the Western Cape. Here's what happened in the latest by-elections. Last night we had another heated round of by-elections, with one taking place in KZN, where the IFP and the MK party were battling for dominance in a hotly contested ward where the ANC also featured. Meanwhile, in George, in the Western Cape, we saw the PA continue running riot against the DA. But before we get into these results, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? It's completely free, and all you have to do is click on the subscribe button below. Furthermore, if you would like to support the channel and perhaps enjoy some additional perks, consider becoming a Power Club member. You can do so by clicking the join button below the video. Now let's get into it. So the first by-election we're going to take a look at is the by-election in the Western Cape, specifically Ward 16 in George. So in this specific by-election, the PA enjoyed a resounding victory, getting 1,873 votes, or 65.26% of the vote. The DA came up far short with just 983 votes, or 34.25%, whereas the ANC was almost non-existent. They only got 10 votes, or 0.35%. As elections analyst Wayne Sussman explained here on X, this was a very significant by-election victory for the PA. You see, the Patriotic Alliance have now won their 4th consecutive seat off of the DA in George. And as we can see at the bottom of his explanation, the PA only had 1 seat after the 2021 elections. Now, all of a sudden, they are the 3rd biggest party in the municipality. Meanwhile, the DA's coalition with the Freedom Front Plus and the ACDP continues to weaken, and they now only have a majority of 29 out of 55 seats. And so this is a very consequential by-election. Not only was it the PA's biggest by-election to date, with over 65% of the vote in their favor, but they also now seem to be threatening the coalition as well as the DA's control in George. If this is the sort of result that the PA is able to get with just a few select by-elections, one can only imagine what their potential will be during the upcoming municipal elections, when every single ward and every single vote will be up for grabs. And so this is a very consequential result for them, as well as for the DA, who will be certainly very concerned at how the PA just continue to be taking seats off of them, specifically in the Western Cape. So if we take a look at the graph provided here of Ward 16's previous elections, we see some pretty stark patterns. So the first important thing is obviously how the PA has skyrocketed in recent times, coming from virtually nowhere when they first started competing in 2021. We see how in the 2021 ward, they got 119 votes, or just 5.9% of the vote. In 2024, we saw them skyrocket to over 1,000 votes. They got 37.8% of the vote before getting 65.26% of the vote in this specific election. The DA really seems to be fluctuating quite heavily here, as we can see on the graph, and also just looking at the results. So they got 1,139 votes here, or 54% of the vote in 2016, where they held the ward. We then saw how in 2019, they went up to 1,269 votes, 57.1%, which is normal because in general elections, you expect a higher voter turnout. In 2021, however, they got hit quite hard. They fell all the way down to 496 votes, or 24.6%. Now, at this point, it's important for us to take a look at the Good Party. You see, in 2019, in their first election, the Good Party only got 46 votes, or 2.1%. It was in 2021, however, where they started to really gain momentum here. They got 781 votes, or 38.8%, effectively winning the ward off the DA. And this led to the DA's declining votes. Now, in 2024, The DA really managed to pump out a very good voter turnout here. They got 1,442 votes, or 52.3% of the vote. But of course, that's before it all came crashing down in this by-election. Looking at the ANC, we see how they've never really been strong performers here, and they've really declined quite notably over the years. They got 14.3%, or 302 votes in 2016. Going into 2019, they almost halved to 179 votes, or 8%. They fell all the way down to 62 votes, or 3.1% in 2021, before recovering to 102 votes, or 3.7% in the 2024 general election. In this by-election, they were almost non-existent, with just 10 votes. Now for the Good Party. We know that in 2016 they hadn't been formed yet. In 2019, they only got 46 votes, and then in 2021, as explained before, that was the year where they really shone. In 2024, we saw the sensationalism around Good really completely deteriorate. They only got 42 votes, or 1.5% of the vote. And so ultimately, what we can deduce from this by-election is that the PA was successful in drawing in ANC voters, Good voters, a chunk of DA voters, and then maybe a few people who had not voted in previous elections. And so the PA will really be viewing this election with a lot of promise, because they are seeing how they're able to draw support from various groups with various ideologies. So a very good look for the PA. The second by-election was in KZN, specifically in Umzumbe, Ward 13. Now, what's really important to understand about this ward in Umzumbe is that it has actually changed hands quite a few times. And so the IFP will be very happy with their result. You see, they got 885 votes, or 43.23% of the vote. They were followed by the ANC with 659 votes, or 32.19%, and then the MK party with 335 votes, or 16.37%. Interestingly enough, the NFP, who were a splinter off of the IFP, got 167 votes, or 8.16%. But as we take a look at the historical voting trends, this will show just how unpredictable this ward can actually be. As I explained, the IFP will be ecstatic, because this is the most votes they've ever gotten in this ward. We see how in 2016 they had 430 votes, or 20.9%. This then declined slightly in 2019 to 424 votes, or 20.7%, before skyrocketing in 2021 to 859 votes, or 50.1%, so roughly doubling their vote. In the 2024 provincial election, surprisingly, they almost halved this vote, only getting 482 votes, or 26.7%, but they recovered spectacularly in this by-election, getting 885 votes, or 43.23%. Now, although this is only the second highest percentage they've ever gotten, they'll be very happy because their actual raw number of votes hit an all-time high, as we can see from the graph on the right-hand side. But while the IFP has done very well, we notice how not only the MK has tanked, but the ANC have also struggled. You see, back in 2016, the ANC absolutely dominated this ward. They got 1,499 votes, or 72.9% of the vote. This declined somewhat to 1,404 votes in 2019, or 68.4%, before almost halving to 780 votes in 2021, or 45.5%. Since losing their majority, they've only been going downhill, really. They went down to 562 votes, or 31.2%. They did slightly improve in this election to 659 votes, or 32.19%. But what we can tell is that this improvement certainly wasn't at the expense of the IFP. But once we see what happened to the MK party, we understand what's really going on. You see, the MK party burst onto the scene in 2024, actually proving to be the biggest party in this ward with 690 votes, or 38.3%. And we can see this from the graph on the right. But what's really interesting in this election is that they more than halved their support to just 335 votes, or 16.37%. And so it appears that what ultimately happened here is that the IFP were able to draw support potentially from the ANC, but specifically from the MK party. Furthermore, it does seem that certain MK party members may have gone to the ANC because the ANC did enjoy a slight rise in support as well. Finally, we've got the most curious thing that happened, which is that the NFP decided to contest this by-election despite never performing well here. In 2019, they only got 23 votes, or 1.1%. 2021, they didn't even feature, and 2024, they only got 3 votes, or 0.2%. And so it's very curious to see them get 167 votes in this by-election, which is 8.16%. Now, their inclusion probably would have been to the detriment of the IFP, because remember, the NFP are made up of members who decided to leave the IFP out of dissatisfaction and internal party feuds. And so ultimately, one would expect that if the NFP did not contest, their votes ideologically and just naturally would have gone to the IFP. Because as I've explained, it's the most ideologically similar party, and they are generally former IFP members. And so ultimately, a very good result for the IFP. And it just goes to show how, although the MK really burst onto the scene in 2024, the hype around MK really seems to be dying down, and the party just continues to decline wherever they seem to be contending. Furthermore, we see how the ANC has managed to recover somewhat in this ward, but they aren't doing enough in order to actually contend with the IFP. And so the IFP will certainly be incredibly happy with this result. Thank you for tuning into this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.